Hello. This is a commentary for my recent speedrun of Pokemon Fire Red Leaf Green Plus with Clefable as the alt main. This run was really solid. It's the second run of this that I did, but this run ended up really good. So I thought I'd do some commentary over and show or discuss the strategies that were used. So we'll just get right into it here. So this alt main doesn't matter which version you play on, Fire Red or Leaf Green, doesn't really matter. Leaf Green is a little bit better because of the cut HM friend. You can get a Sandshrew in Leaf Green, which is a nice option, but that's not a huge deal. And for the start, since everything's in instant text, you just use a default name. It's kind of interesting how many those names there are available. There's at least 20 in the female side of things. I haven't played with the boy too much, but there's at least 20 female names, which is pretty cool. So for this run, we are using Clefable, but Squirtle is used for enough of the run that it is worthwhile to manipulate the Squirtle. That being said, you probably could do this Manipulus. It would just be a little bit dicey. So for the manipulation of the Squirtle, the stats are a little bit more restrictive. One thing also I should point out right now, I didn't go ahead and save and reset, and then change the difficulty mode as well as the EXP multiplier. And there's a very important reason for this, which we'll get to a little bit later. Also, I didn't really check stats beforehand. I just go into the fight. It's really fast just to check in battle. I just realized that. This one, I wasn't really too sure it was the right one at all because it ended up being pretty slow. And I got growled as well, and that kind of messed me up a little bit. But turns out it was the right one. As you can see, I was slower than the Bulbasaur. So for this run, the manipulation is a little more lenient. For this, I'll take anything that's plus special attack nature. So that includes mild, modest, rash, or quiet nature. And for modest, I'll take anything except 3 IV attack or lower. The attack's just way too low to be you're able to be able to beat the rival fight quickly. So I scrapped that. For mild, I don't take anything less than 13 defense because the Brock fight can get pretty scary. And for special attack, I take 29 or better, which is almost the same as what we do for vanilla. Special defense does not matter at all. We don't actually see any special attacks on Squirtle. And for speed, I take quiet nature, 14 IV or better. Any slower than that, I would actually be just flat out slower than the Bulbasaur, and that's not ideal. So we go for the 14. I mentioned that I'm not actually going to be setting the EXP multiplier and the difficulty immediately. And there's a very important reason for that. We want the Squirtle to go no higher than level 12. And so the best way to do that is to effectively play this as a standard glitchless speedrun of vanilla, where Squirtle levels up, gets the normal amount of experience, and levels up as normal. So as you can see, level 6 here, so I don't have Bubble yet, and so I have to tackle the Pidgey to weaken it. And this doing it this way allows for level 12 to be reached a lot easier, a lot more efficiently, with a lot less soft resets to change the difficulty and the EXP. So the first run I did of this, I actually didn't even bother with that. I just set the difficulty and the EXP multiplier to 2x and easy mode right off the bat. And there's some advantages and disadvantages to doing that. The early game is obviously going to be a lot riskier now because I'm going to be leveling up a lot more slowly. But the actual catching of the Clefairy is a little bit... I don't exactly know how much faster it is, but I believe it is a little bit faster overall. But I haven't done enough tests of each method. So as you can see, I get both of my HM friends here. I don't really need to get them both here, but getting at least one is important because this catch tutorial doesn't play. So getting both there is super nice. So as you can imagine, this next fight against Sammy, which is the first mandatory trainer that's not the rival, is pretty scary because you only have Tackle and Tail Whip, and the Weedle is 3 levels higher than you. In this particular case, I don't fight any extra experience. In vanilla, you would fight one optional Pokemon on Route 1 to get just enough experience to hit a couple level thresholds. Later on, those would be level 8 for the Liam fight, which is the minion in Brock's gym, as well as level 13 after Brock. This level 5 Weedle is a bit scary. Level 5s could be faster, speed tied. In this case, it might have actually outsped me because that was quiet nature, but that's fine. So I'm going to save for this fight. Could have probably avoided the save to save a bit of time, but it's not a big deal. And so the strat is pretty much just like what you do for vanilla. Tail it once and then spam tackle. Hope you don't get poisoned. I did play it a little bit risky here. I'm at 6 HP, so a crit would kill with Poison Sting. But never actually got a hit with this super low HP, which was kind of interesting. So as you can see, if I finish this fight, I'm level 7. I am actually in Torrent here, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to be healing this off because this is other than the extra experience that I didn't get, this is going to be a very, very different Brock gym than normal, what you would see in vanilla. So fighting Liam and Brock here puts me right at level... I believe it would get me to level 12, but the Liam fight would be quite scary since I'm not a very high level. And Liam's just an extra fight that I don't need to do at all, so it's actually just better to just go into this fight at level 7, which is very, very low level. But it is winnable as long as you heal the full and don't get super trolled. So we go ahead and knock out the Geodude really quick. Seeing Dead Scrolls is great because you don't take any damage. And you get to level 9 for the Onyx. Now, what's very, very important here is... I has level 7 for that Geodude. If I has 28 special attack IV, I would not be able to 2-hit that Geodude at all. It is a 0% chance to 2-shot without a Torrent. But 29 or better, it is guaranteed. So that's kind of an interesting damage calculation quirk based on your stats there. So that's why it's very important that you don't take 28 special attack IV. The Onyx is always a 3-hit unless you somehow get Torrent, which is quite rare unless you get crit once or twice. So it's usually pretty safe to, as long as you're not in kill range to Rock Tomb, to just spam bubble there. It's fine. So I'm going to go shopping here. It's going to be a little bit different. I bought one Pokeball. That's kind of just a safety play for the Clefairy. It's a pretty difficult catch. I bought some potions, some antidotes, some awakenings, and some repels. I'm going to buy 4 repels here. Could go with 3. But I'm going to be picking up the revive in Mount Moon, so 4 makes sense to get here. And as you can see, I did not hit level, I'm still only level 11, I believe, here after the Brock fight. So I don't have Water Gun for these bugs. Getting a crit there on the Caterpie is really good. So these bugs are at least 2 hits, well, at least 3 hits actually. At the very least the first one. So it's a bit of a slow fight. This Weedle can be a bit scary, especially if it poisons you like you see here. I opted to... I got a bit lucky there with the crit. Probably should have healed right away, but got away with one. And now I'm going to be in Torrent for this Caterpie, which is going to save a little bit of time. Ideally, but it's still going to be a 3-hit by the looks of it, so it's still a pretty scary fight at this level with this without Water Gun. And so you can see I'm level 12 here. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to do a quick menu. I'm going to heal Squirtle. And then very, very importantly, I don't want to go above level 12. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save and I'm going to soft reset here. And there's a really nice little feature in this called the EXP multiplier, which you can set the EXP to 2x, but there's also a mode which is called 0x, so you get no experience whatsoever. Because I want my Squirtle to not level up any further than it is now, which we'll see when we get into Mount Moon. So these next two fights are going to be a little bit worse than normal. You don't normally even fight this girl in Vanilla because it's just faster with Water Gun to fight the bug catcher below. But this fight is just faster to do if you only have Bubble. So, as you can see, no experience gained. And I can go ahead and just knock out this Nidoran. It's a bit slow because this Nidoran's pretty bulky, but I think it just spammed stat dropping moves here. Yeah, it just growled 3 times. Not a big deal. And that's her done. One more fight to go for Squirtle. Technically, there's another one that Squirtle's going to do. And we'll be fighting Bugcatcher James. So this is kind of dicey. I want to be very careful I don't run out of Bubble PP, because I do need a way to weaken the Clefairy. And it's optimal to have Bubble to weaken it with, because Clefairy's ability is Cute Charm, and 75% of Clefairies are female. And so if you have a male Squirtle, Tackle can cause Cute Charm to activate, and then it's very, very, very annoying to weaken it, because you're 50% to just not kill. I switched to Tackle for the last hit, not realizing that it didn't kill, which is quite unfortunate, but that's okay. This is a bit of a mistake. I should have probably waited for the walker to turn, but... An encounter only takes about 6 seconds, so it's not a huge amount of time lost, but definitely something that could be cleaned up a little bit more. Picking up the Persianberry, that's a nice thing to have for Misty, as well as a couple other fights where you can get confused. So I'm going to do another quick menu here. I'm going to heal, and I'm going to repel, and I'm going to register the TM case. TM case is nice to use for bag manips on spinners. And then head into Mount Moon. And so this repel, these 4 repels will get me through the entirety of Mount Moon. Importantly, I still need to get my Clefairy. So what I'm doing here is I've set myself up so that I'm level 12 on my Squirtle. There are Clefairy in the bottom floor of Mount Moon, and they can be either level 10 or level 12. If you're the same level as a Pokemon in the wild, and you have a repel up, you'll still be able to encounter it. So what I'm doing here is I am not guaranteeing the odds of a Clefairy showing up, but I'm actually increasing the odds of a Clefairy to show up with each encounter that I get. So Clefairy is a 5% encounter. Is it 5? I think it's 5. 5% encounter normally on this bottom floor. 4% level 10, 1% level 12. But when I repel, I can only get level 12 encounters. There are 2 level 12 encounter slots here. Paris, which is a 5%, and Clefairy, which is a 1%. And so I'm roughly 17% to get a Clefairy with each encounter. And very luckily, I don't even have to grind for encounters. I get a Clefairy first try. So this is really, really good. In fact, because of this, I don't even know if I'll even run this category again, because this is insanely good luck. And unfortunately, Squirtle doesn't really have anything good to weaken the Clefairy with, so I'm just gonna chip away a little bit with Bubble and Tackle. And it's important to know here this Clefairy is male, so I can't get Cute Charmed with my Squirtle. But also, you're not going to see much Cute Charm happening the opposite way when I use the Clefairy in battle. That can be good, it can be bad. Cute Charm is extra text, and it often doesn't even help much in the first place. But the male Clefairy isn't a huge deal over the female. A little bit of a pause here. I'm actually entering the stats into an IV tracker that was done using Pokemon Ranger, created by Corvame, who's a member of the Pokemon speedrunning community. Really, really useful tool. So for Clefairy stats, I'm not really bothered by the nature of the Clefairy. Optimally, I do want to not have minus attack or minus special attack. As you can see here, I did get bold, which is plus defense, minus attack. This is fine. I'm going to have a few more ranges to worry about with the attacking side of things, but plus defense is really solid. And my other stats aren't amazing either, but they're definitely usable, so not a big deal. So one thing I'm doing right away is I'm going to be using the Moonstone I picked up on Clefairy to evolve it to Clefable. I'm going to be candying Clefable to level 13, and this is both to help this next fight especially go a bit easier. You do a lot more damage at level 13 versus level 12, but also now I can't get an encounter because I'm now higher level than the other Pokemon that are here. So there's kind of two benefits to candying there. And also put on the Persiberry, which I lose immediately to the Zubat. Very nice. One thing I also forgot to point out is I think when I got to the bottom floor, I did another quick soft reset and set the EXP multiplier to 2x, which is the standard EXP multiplier we use for speedruns of this category, because more experience is always better. Here was a bit of a weird spot. My only attacking move is Pound, and it got disabled. So what I opted to do is I opted to Growl the Grimer and then use Encore once it uses Pound, so that it's not able to use Harden. And then because I pretty much I couldn't do anything else. I just decided to put it to sleep. So bit of a slow Grimer, but not a big deal. So pretty much it's just spam Pound here. Clefable's got 75 base attack, so it's not terrible at all. It's actually a pretty decent attack. So it actually does a pretty good job dealing with some of these Pokemon. A little bit unfortunate to get poisoned here, so I am going to heal that off with an antidote. I do buy a lot of antidotes. As you can see, I have 5 of them. I also bought, I believe I don't have them yet, but I will be buying a lot of Paralyze heals as well. Because unfortunately, Clefable's moves, most of them early game are contact moves, which means you can activate abilities like Poison Point and Static, and so you need a lot of status items. Picking up a little bonus antidote here, and exiting Mount Moon 6.5 minutes ahead of my previous run. So, my previous run didn't do any of this repel stuff. It did a normal setup to get the Clefairy. So Squirtle gained experience as normal with the double. But I was also just grinding full odds encounters in Mount Moon. So going for that 6% Clefairy, or 5% Clefairy. And I think it's 6% actually, but I could be wrong. Anyway, that's kind of slow because the odds of getting a Clefairy are lower with each encounter, and you also have to run away from 1,000,000 encounters, and that's not ideal. So that's why I think this repel trick is a little bit faster. It definitely saved a lot of time, mostly because I got super lucky and got a Clefairy first encounter. So after exiting Mount Moon, I fought one wild Pokemon, and that is to get level 17 for the next fight, which is the Rival 2 fight, which is always a fun fight to do. And picking up this rare candy, so what I'm going to be doing here is after taking the center, I'm actually going to use that one candy I just picked up, and I'm going to candy Clefable to level 18, So being level 18 for this fight is beneficial over level 17 because of the way the damage formula works. Levels ending in 0, 3, 5, and 8 produce a much, but a little bit of a boost to the damage output over the other second digits, I should say, or I'll say for the level. So 18 does a lot more damage than, like 17 to 18, the increase in damage is much higher than from 16 to 17, for example. So this first fight, you have the risk, of course, of getting sand attacked by the Pidgeotto. Didn't get that, which is really good. And then I just have to Mega Punch that a couple times. If you have good attack, you can actually finish the Pidgeotto with Pound. But my attack is a little bit too low for that. It's like a 15% range or something like that, which is pretty brutal. And got a little bit unlucky again on the Bulbasaur. That Bulbasaur 2-hit with Punch plus Pound was a 98% range. So I got really unlucky on the Bulbasaur. However, on the Abra, it was a 3 and 16 to one-shot with Pound, and I hit that range. So I guess get some, win some, you lose some. Bugcatcher fight is pretty straightforward, just Pound 4 times. Also, I forgot to mention, I did mention that I used the move, but I do get Mega Punch from the move tutor. Just a really useful stab move. It does miss, but it's not horrible. It's 85%. It's kind of on the borderline between brutal and accuracy and okay accuracy. So very, very useful move to have. Mega Kick is definitely not needed. You can definitely get it, and it might help you on the Bulbasaur and the Pidgeotto, but you pretty much wouldn't use it anywhere else, so it's not really worth grabbing. Just 2-hit and move on from there. You definitely would have space for it at this point in the run, because pretty much I'm just going to be using Pound and Mega Punch, and I'm not going to be using my other 2 moves for the time being. You'll see in my splits I actually did things a bit differently. So in the other EXP route, what you do is you catch the Clefairy, and then you actually swap train on the Rocket, the Nerd, and depending on if it's level 10 or level 12, you might have to swap train on the Swimmer in Misty's gym, and then you swap train on Misty herself. And then you get the same level to start the bridge as you would in this particular route. But that's obviously quite a lot slower. And because of that strategy, you need to have a really good Squirtle with really good stats. So you need to have really high special attack. You need to have pretty decent defenses. So this Manip's a little more flexible. You can take Quiet Nature and Modest Nature, as well as Rash and Mild, for example. So that's kind of the difference between that. So I'm not gonna be fighting Misty after Bill, and so I won't be splitting. I think I ended up skipping the Bill split as well. So we ended up reconvening with the splits at Surge. So on this bridge, there's not too much to point out. The Sandshrew is a range with Mega Punch, as you saw. I believe I missed it. And it has sand attacks. That could be a bit of a time waste. The Nidoran trainer, you can get Poison Point, as well as hitting Mega Punches. The Mankey, if you're slow. In this run, my notes say I should have been speed tied with it, or slower than it, but I wasn't, which is kind of odd. I have to check that. That Mankey has low kick, and I've actually died to it in my previous run of this. So that Mankey is quite scary. We're about here to fight the Onyx, and we don't really have any good moves to beat the Onyx. It's actually a 4-hit with Mega Punch. So the fastest way to do this fight is actually just to switch to Squirtle. Switching from my level 24 to my level 12. And just bubbling twice. And Squirtle 2-hits the Onyx with Bubble. It does level up and get a move, it learns Water Gun, but it's significantly better than having to try to hit 4 Mega Punches in a row. And the experience loss isn't too much of a big deal, so that's fine. if Squirtle was to faint, you would just bring Clefable in and finish it off. So definitely the easiest way to do that fight. Another fight here with Poison Point possibly activating. This Nidoran unfortunately was about a 12 and 16 with Pound, so I opted to punch it, and looks like I missed on the Nidoran female, but didn't get Poison Pointed again, so that's good. Choice of trainers here between Flint and Knob. Obviously, Flint is the way to go. With all the Geodudes, we have nothing to deal with. But one important, interesting thing to point out is that on the old route, the route that I am comparing to here, you get Water Pulse from Misty. And I actually put that on Clefable right away, and that gives a little more flexibility in this section of the run, because one, you can beat the Onyx with Water Pulse, and it's really, really straightforward. But you also can use Water Pulse on some of these Mons, like the Nidorans, and avoid having to use a contact move, or even use Mega Punch, which is inaccurate. So there's a little bit of flexibility there with that route, by having the Water Pulse move in your moveset. But this run went pretty smoothly, didn't miss too many Mega Punches, didn't really get trolled too much status-wise, so pretty solid time through the bill. So I do not split here, because I still have to fight Misty. So I should skip this at some point. I don't exactly remember when. There we go. I didn't really talk about my IVs. So it looks like I have, it's kind of small here on my window. Let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Yeah, so I have 5 HP, which is fairly low. Clefable has pretty decent HP, and it's not a huge deal to have that HP. In fact, my defense is extremely high because I have plus defense nature 22 IV, which is really good. My attack is a little bit on the lower end, but it is at least a decent IV with the minus attack nature. Special attack is decent at 20. Definitely more than good enough. Minus special attack is kind of problematic in certain points. Special defense is a tiny bit low at 9, but not terrible. You don't see too many special attacks in the run, mostly on this fight against Misty, as well as fights like Lorelei and Blaine. And then speed is 3 IV, which is a little bit on the slower end, but Clefable is actually a decently fast Pokemon. It is 60 base speed, but you do get a lot of extra levels, so 60 base speed Pokemon are definitely runnable in this hack. So Misty fight went by pretty quickly, but pretty much you one-hit the Staryu with Mega Punch. You ideally don't want to miss because it has Harden, and then it becomes like a really slow fight. And with really low speed, I just outsped it actually, but you can be slower. The Starmie always outspeeds, but it's always a 2-hit with Mega Punch, and it does a little bit of damage with Water Pulse, but nothing too scary. Bit of a scary spot here on the Dig Rocket. I missed on the Machop and got low kicked. I do still have that revive in my inventory, so that's still an option. I believe I taught Water Pulse already, and my special attack wasn't quite good enough to Water Pulse that Machop. You need to pretty much have plus special attack nature for it to be a favorable range, so had to go for the Mega Punch there, unfortunately. Gonna grab this for a candy here. Kind of a staple. Make a little bit of a execution movement error there. I actually walked through a 7th tile of grass. The first 6 tiles of grass on a route, you have what's called pseudo immunity. So you have greatly reduced encounter chance on those first 6 tiles. It's 1% on each of those 6 tiles to get an encounter, and then it's full odds. I don't remember what exactly the odds are but it's significantly higher on the 7th and subsequent tiles. And you can actually, very likely to get an encounter if you walk more than 6 tiles in grass, but that's okay, not a big deal. HP is getting a little low here, so we'll be healing that up shortly. Taking a quick shop, I'm going to be buying some super potions, some paralyze heals, and some repels. I actually messed up my money a little bit. I think it was because of that Pokeball I sold earlier. So I had to sell my last 2 Pokeballs and in order to buy that 3rd repel. A little bit of an unfortunate error there. So because I'm low HP, I'm going to take the heal with the lady. Normally you take the heal with her after the boat, but I'm actually just not going to take the heal after the boat now, and I'm just going to take it before. To get to full HP for the rival, there's no benefit at being low HP because there's no torrent or anything ability like that in this with Clefable. So this fight is, I have to hit 3 Mega Punches. Luckily the Pidgeotto went for quick attack, so even if I did miss, I'd still be okay to get another hit without having to worry about sand attack. Mega Punch the Eradicate. I am speed tied with this Kadabra. And I switched to Pound. That's because there is a chance that this Kadabra can use Disable, and it wouldn't allow me to use Mega Punch on the Kadabra, and I would just lose a turn trying to use a move that was disabled. So switching to Pound, but I got Confusion, so that's fine, and then I can Mega Punch the Ivysaur, and the Ivysaur is guaranteed to die to Mega Punch as well. So pretty fast fight, provided you hit 3 Mega Punches. Alright, so just about done here with the boat. So next up is Surge's Gym. So the gym is pretty much the same as it always is. You have to find 2 cans. The second can is always adjacent to the first, and it's random where the first one is. So luckily you have running shoes, so you can move around this gym a little bit quicker. Be careful, of course, about the spinners. But you ideally want to see a can in the corners because it's only 2 possibilities for that second can. First of all, I'm going to do a quick menu here. I'm going to teach Dig and I'm going to teach Cut. Dig effectively replaces escape ropes. Using Dig is generally slower than using an escape rope. But very often I'm going to be not doing as many menus in this run compared to vanilla, so it's actually just beneficial to teach Dig, because you can always just go straight to the Pokemon menu and get to Rattata really quickly. And rather than having to use an escape rope. And for money purposes, it's nice to have escape ropes either. So in terms of cans, I got the quick first can. Had to reset, of course, for the second and first try and the second try at the second can, which is a bit unfortunate, but overall not terrible. Okay. So this fight, in this gym, 3 of the 4 Pokemon you fight have static, so you ideally do not want to use a contact move on them, so I'm going to go for Water Pulse here on this Pikachu. It's actually a 12 and 16 range. I could have gone for Pound, I could have gone for Mega Punch, but those have a chance to activate static, and then I would have to menu to heal that off. Lieutenant Surge, the Voltorb doesn't have static, it has soundproof as its ability, so I could go ahead and use Mega Punch on it. I did lose a speed tie there. I was speed tied with the Voltorb. Screech isn't a big deal though. This Pikachu is a little bit weaker than the first one, so I could just use Water Pulse. And then the Raichu is... it's actually a damage range for me here. It's a 13 and 16 range, and luckily the second try I was able to hit it. The Raichu does like to use Double Team, but hit through, so that's really good. With really, really low attack, I would have to use Water Pulse turn 1 to do some chip damage, because Surge does have super potions, and we don't want to see those. And I got Static to get the end, but that's not a big deal. I can just heal that off a little bit later. Alright, so heading back to Cerulean to get the bike, and then I'll head off to Rock Tunnel. So this next split is actually pretty straightforward fights for Clefable. In general, for this ROM hack, this next route, the route before Rock Tunnel and Rock Tunnel itself, the fights are the Pokemon are fairly low level, and you generally have a pretty easy time beating them. Although there are some cases where you can run into some difficulties on a few of them. Particularly the Pokemaniacs, but not a big deal. Alright, just gonna do a quick menu here. I'm gonna heal paralysis off, and equip and use the bike. And the bike is really fast in this game, so it's nice to move around the overworld really fast. So this fight, the first Oddish, unless you have really, really low attack, you have to use Mega Punch on it. But it's not too bad for me here, because my attack IV is decent. Pound the 2 Bellsprouts, because they're a little bit weaker. And then the second Oddish, I have to use Mega Punch, because my attack is a little bit lower, and it's only a 5 and 16 range here, so better to go for Mega Punch. Go past the Hiker. And this Bug Catcher is pretty straightforward. I do have to hit 1 Mega Punch on Venonat, but the small bugs go down pretty quickly. And into Rock Tunnel. Okay, so quick menu here when I enter Rock Tunnel. I'm actually going to go into my TM case. I'm going to teach Shockwave to Clefable. This is the move I'm going to be keeping for most of the rest of it. I think I would keep it for the whole run from here. Very, very useful move. Electric type, can't miss, which is very key for one fight later. Technically for a couple fights. I'm also going to use an Ether on Mega Punch just for a little bit of extra safety in terms of PP management, and then use Repel as well. For this fight here, pretty straightforward. I just use super effective moves. These pokes do not die to Mega Punch, so it's easy just to go for Shockwave on the Slowpoke there. The next Pokemaniac has a Slowpoke that's a little bit bulkier, and depending on your special attack and your attack, you might want to Mega Punch this. So for example, if you have really high attack but really low special attack, it's actually better to Mega Punch the Slowpoke because it's a better range. But most of the time you want to Shockwave the second Slowpoke as well. Martha, so this fight I'm going to have to use 2 Mega Punches because my attack is bad. The Oddish you always Mega Punch because it's a little bit bulkier, and then the Bulbasaur, unless you have like plus attack, you have to punch it as well. So hit those 2, no problem. And yeah, the next fights are all pretty straightforward, just one-hit everything. Yeah, not too much more to say here. It's just getting through the cave and one-hitting. Luckily, Water Pulse is a super nice move to have because it allows Clefable to handle the rock types. So a lot of the time when you do alt mains in this game, you want to make sure you have something to deal with rock types. That's usually the crux for a lot of these Pokemon, is finding a move that's super effective. So you ideally want to have something that can learn Water Pulse, because that's pretty much the only move you can get access to by TM that is super effective on rock types, other than Brick Break, which is a TM you have to get. You can get it on the boat, but you have to fight an optional to access it. Alright, almost through the cave. This fight, the Oddish, you can be forced to Mega Punch with really low attack. In this particular run, I was actually a 14 and 16 range to kill with Pound, so definitely, usually for 13 and 16 or better, I will go for those ranges. So, hit the range there, that's all good. So after exiting... Rock Tunnel and going through Lavender Town, I'm going to go grab the Return TM from the little girl. So Return is a very nice move to have on Clefable because it gets Stab. And will be a very strong move by the late game. I'm not going to be teaching it just yet because my happiness isn't quite high enough such that it's stronger than Mega Punch, so I'll be keeping Mega Punch for the time being. In terms of the trainers you fight here, I opt to fight the Gambler, and notice that he is in this hack. They did change his trainer class and his dialogue to the original Gen 1 versions. So he's a gamer, and he says, I'm a rambling gaming dude in Gen 3, but for this hack, he is now a Gambler, and he says, I'm a rambling gambling dude. Kind of a neat little quirk that the ROM hack creator added back in here. You can fight the Clefairy girl above, but the problem with that fight is that you have to use Mega Punch, and Mega Punch can miss. And in particular for this run, I have a male Clefable, and those Clefairy are female, and so you might have to worry about getting attracted. I'm not sure the Clefairies actually know the move Attract, but they also have Minimize as well, and you don't want to deal with missing, so. You just take the Intimidate text and go for the Gambler instead. This fight's relatively straightforward, just use one-hit KO moves. Ideally, I'm going to try to use Pound as much as possible, because Pound's a move that has a lot of PP, and I'm going to be getting rid of in the near future. And Shockwave's a nice move to have as well, because it's a nice, strong 60 base power move. Because I used a lot of Water Pulses in like Surge's gym as well as Rock Tunnel. I have to be very careful with my Water Pulse PP count here. I need to make sure I have 2 left for Giovanni for his 2 rock types. These 2 guard trainers, pretty straightforward. Just Water Pulse the 2 ground type, Sandshrew and Sandslash, and then the Ekans, you can either go for Pound or you can go for Shockwave, depending on your attack and your special attack. So because my special attack is pretty solid here, I'll be going for Shockwave on the Ekans, as opposed to Pound. If you're really unlucky and you roll like minus special attack and low neutral attack, you can actually run into a problem where neither of those 2 moves can kill, and then you have to go for Mega Punch. But don't have to worry about that here. For this fight, I have to hit the Airbock with Shockwave. I actually have enough Water Pulses left to use Water Pulse. Water Pulse is just nice because there's that confusion chance, 20% to confuse. So the Airbock does have Glare, so you want to avoid getting status there if you can. Alright, into Giovanni. This fight is not too hard. The Onyx and the Rhyhorn go down to Water Pulse really easily. The Kangaskhan is a damage range to hit with Mega Punch, and with my attack, it's a 93% range with this specific Clefable. And luckily I got good enough rolls here to get the 2-hit and get through that fight pretty cleanly. It's looking pretty good at 8 minutes ahead of my previous run. Alright, now that we're done with the Rocket Hideout, time to go shopping. So one neat thing that was added in this hack is you can now sell Moonstones. The reason for that is you can actually buy Moonstones in the Sevi Islands, I believe. So the ROM hack creator made Moonstones sellable, so you don't have to worry about tossing the Moonstone. You can get a little bit of extra money for it as well. So here I'm buying checking my stats here just to make sure I'm buying the right amount of X items. Depending on my stats, I can buy different amounts of each. A little bit longer than I'd like here, but that's okay. So you're going to buy some X attacks, X defends, X speeds, X specials, X accuracies, and guard specs. So pretty much every type of X item that you can buy, I'm going to be buying a few of them. And then I'm going to head down to the second floor here, and I'm going to buy some more healing items, some more super potions, as well as 16 super repels. This is enough super repels such that I can use 1 super repel when I teach fly, and never have to worry about canceling or menuing for a repel again, because in this game, repels, it prompts you every time you want to renew one, so you don't have to worry about menuing specifically for a repel. So it's nice to buy a large amount of them in that particular case. Gonna go buy fly here, or pick up fly rather, and then do a quick menu. Teach fly to my bird. I'm going to teach return to Clefable because very shortly return will be stronger than Mega Punch. So teach return. Return also has more power. Actually, it has the same amount of power points as Mega Punch. You also got a candy 3 times. So for happiness, you generally gain happiness when you level up. When you beat a gym leader, this applies only for a certain level of happiness. And then when you use vitamins, you also get happiness as well. So using candies is super good because you get the level up happiness increase, you get the vitamin happiness increase, and also your attacking stats increase as well. So return gets really powerful really fast when you start using rare candies. Alright, Rival 4. This fight's pretty straightforward. I'm going to be setting up just one X item, and that's a guard spec. The reason for that is I have enough power on my return, because it's also a stat move, that I can just spam return here. The guard spec is only used to stop Intimidate from dropping Clefable's attack, so it is nice to have the guard spec up there. I believe that you would not use the guard spec if you are able to somehow beat the Ivysaur. If you were -2 attack, which is what you'd have if you did not use the guard spec, you would not be able to hit the Ivysaur. And it has status moves, so you don't want to see that. If the rival had Wartortle or Charmeleon, you might be able to get away with using Shockwave and or Water Pulse, depending on the Pokemon. And you might be able to get away without setting up on that fight at all. The rival's Pokemon also, other Pokemon also change depending which starter they have. So it's just the best method to use the guard spec there, and then just start spamming return. Took the heal pad to restore PP and also HP, and then I'm going to be just blitzing my way up the tower here. Nothing too much to point out here. Everything is a one-hit except for the Marowak coming up, which is a 2-hit with Water Pulse. But doesn't pose too much of a threat if you don't hit the get the crit, so not a big deal. Okay, now with the tower beaten, got a couple choices of where to go. You can go to Silphco right now and fight Giovanni again. There's also Erica's gym. There's also going to Fuchsia. So what I opted to do in this route is go to Erica's gym right after the tower. I also got the tea. I should have probably grabbed the tea a bit earlier because I'm actually taking a lot of extra steps to get to the gym, but not a big deal. But Erica's gym is actually pretty straightforward to blitz through here. I use, I think, a couple of my last 2 pound PP. I don't think I use pound after this fight anymore. and then go through this fight against the Execute. Because of Stab, Return, and Clefable having pretty decent attack, the Erica fight is actually almost 100% free. The only way that you have a slightly slow fight is if you have bottom of the barrel minus attack, where you would have a range on the victory bell. It's still pretty favorable, but definitely can miss it. And then with slightly higher, but still pretty low attack, you would have a damage range on Vile Plume with return, so you might opt to use a X attack on the Tangela. The Tangela doesn't do anything too scary. But in this run, I actually have just enough attack that I don't have to worry about any damage ranges, so it's a simple 3-turn fight. Alright, waking up Snorlax, and we're off to Cycling Road. Oh yes, this run I did hit an optional, I think. Yeah, I just didn't move quickly out of the way. So this is probably the biggest mistake I made in the run, but this fight isn't too terrible to go through. It's just spam Shockwave. So I did lose a little bit of time. Experience isn't terribly useful, but the attack EVs might benefit. I'm not 100% sure. And headed into the Safari Zone. You can see there I actually opted to not renew my repel, and that's because I took those extra steps to get the T. Pretty much I'm trying to avoid my repel running out in Koga's gym later. There are 2 spinners there that I actually do, I do run to walk manipulations on them. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we get there. And don't want to have to worry about the repel potentially running out when I'm passing these trainers, because it increases the chances of getting hit. So I delayed my repel a little bit, and Safari Zone just blitz through. Don't have to worry about catching anything. Picking up a couple items: full restore, protein, as well as the gold teeth, and then of course Surf from the prize guy here. So now I'm actually going to fly back to Celadon City and head over to Silphco. The reason why I came to Safari Zone first is I get a couple useful items from the path to Fuchsia. I get that rare candy from the Cycling Road, as well as getting the protein. The rare candy is the most important thing that you get there. So I'll be using those candies pretty much, I think, right on this next menu to level up. And it's just nice having that extra candy with this fight. I also grabbed the Psychic TM from Mr. Psychic. That's just going to be a really useful special attack that Clefable can learn. And it'll be very useful for the next 25 minutes or so. A little bit of an error here, but thought I needed to heal. It turns out I didn't. So through on this menu, I'll be candying twice to level 51. Level 51 helps quite a bit on this fight coming up. 50 would also be fine, but improves the damage ranges a little bit. Also improves some speed thresholds as well. I'm also going to use the protein and also teach Psychic to Clefable. And the protein is used to not only boost the attack stat, but also boost a little bit of happiness as well to improve returns power. And don't really need Pound anymore, so get rid of that and teach Psychic. So now I have 3 special attacks and 1 physical attack on my Clefable. Gonna head into the next rival fight here. So this rival fight can be quite annoying for some alt mains because sometimes you have to set up for physical attacks. So you really don't want to see Feather Dance from the Pidgeot. This route we actually use special attacks. We do use Return on the Alakazam, so we still don't really want to see Feather Dance because we already get attack drops from Gyarados and Growlithe and Intimidate. But luckily here for the Pidgeot, I just need to set up 1X special. I am almost always faster, except for if you have minus speed with 1 IV or less, or 0 IV, you actually speed tie. So you would potentially use an X speed. To outspeed the Gyarados as well. The Gyarados is a little bit faster than the Pidgeot. This Alakazam outspeeds... And in this case, I actually opted to just go for Shockwave times 2 because that was a pretty good call because the Alakazam ended up using Reflect, and Return probably wouldn't have killed there. And then you could just one-hit the rest of the Pokemon in this fight. The Growlithe, I used Shockwave on it here, but you can, if you have minus special attack, you might be arranged, so you can go for Water Pulse or Psychic. And the Alakazam, I actually went for Alakazam. It actually was a damage range for me, so that's why I opted to go for Shockwave. Turns out it ended up being useful because of the Reflect anyway. And the Venusaur can also be a damage range with low special attack. Okay, heading into Giovanni. So this fight's fairly straightforward. Don't need to use any X items, just spam good moves. So Psychic on the Nidorino. Next up is Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen is a 2-hit with either Water Pulse times 2 or Psychic into Water Pulse. Because my special attack is not amazing, I opted to go for Psychic into Water Pulse. Here I got a little bit trolled by Body Slam Paralysis and then Poison Sting Poison. Great combination. And then I got Fake Out from the Kangaskhan. 2-hit the Kangaskhan and then Rhyhorn Water Pulse. For this fight, it's actually not really possible. Like, you could set up X items here, but it wouldn't really save you any turns, so it's actually just better to just 2-hit the Nidoqueen and the Kangaskhan. So here I'm just going to heal a little bit. The Alakazam in this next fight is faster, so I want to be sure I'm out of range from Psychic. Gonna do a quick Mart here. This Mart's not required, but it is just a nice backup to have a few extra Hyper Potions because Clefable actually has pretty high HP, and so Super Potions aren't terribly useful at this point in the run anyway, so it's nice to have some bigger potions so you don't have to click a potion twice. Okay, Sabrina. So this fight, there are 2 Pokemon that can outspeed depending on your speed. The Kadabra only really outspeeds you if you have minus speed and a really low IV. The Alakazam outspeeds you most of the time unless you have like plus attack with above average IV. The strategy here is just spam return and hope that the Alakazam doesn't do anything annoying. In that case, went for Psychic. Probably didn't need to heal that on that menu, but not a big deal. So that's Sabrina down. Next up is Koga. So I'm going to head over to back to Fuchsia. The reason why I didn't fight Koga earlier is I didn't have the Psychic. I didn't have Psychic at that time, and I also was a bit lower level, so it would have been quite annoying to have to deal with his Pokemon because his Weezing and his Muck are pretty bulky. So here I'm going to do run to walks. So run to force the trainer to look down and then walk past them. For whatever reason in this gym, I'm very comfortable doing run to walks, but in other areas I don't feel as comfortable. So what's also really neat about this game is you actually can press the, I think it's the X button, to toggle auto run. And I actually just find doing the run to walk a lot easier when I have auto run enabled. So I press the B button to walk, as opposed to normally you press and hold the B button to run when you don't have auto run enabled. I just find it easier to do the run to walk when you have auto run enabled, because I just press the button instead of releasing it. I just find that much easier. Okay, so Koga. This fight can be really, really straightforward if you have really high special attack or really high attack. I have neither, so I have to kind of do a sketchy setup here on the Muck. I have Shockwave turn 1, get Minimize, and then finish it off with Return. If you have really good special attack, you could just Psychic it, and it'll die. If you have really good attack, you can return it, it'll die. But in this case, with Return, it was not even a range. It was impossible to OHKO. And with Psychic, it was a 12 and 16 range. So I opted to play it a bit safe and go Shockwave turn 1. And then Weezing drops to Psychic as well. So that's not too bad. Okay, 2 more badges left. So next up is Blaine, so I'm going to go get Strength from the Warden. It's just nice to get it here because I'm already in Fuchsia. Don't have to come back later. And this was a bit of a mishap. This actually wasn't even in my notes, so I kind of messed up. I tried to surf without having taught it. I should have probably taught surf on the fly that I just did. But I'm going to teach surf and strength here, because I might as well teach 2 moves at the same time, so I'll teach them both to Squirtle. Clefable can learn strength, but it's not a useful move because it's just not as good as return. So with max happiness, return can be 102 base power, which is significantly better than what strength can. And now it's time to surf very quickly down to Cinnabar Island. The interesting thing they added in for this patch of the hack is if you have auto run enabled, you have fast surf enabled also. And in the old patches, I much preferred pressing and holding the B button to surf faster, and then releasing it to slow down. So in this run, because if you have auto run enabled, when you press B, you will surf slower, and I just find it easier to do it the opposite way. In subsequent runs of this game, what I opt to do is right before I bike down the water in Pallet Town, I actually turn auto run off temporarily, so that I can surf and press B to go faster. Just a little preference thing. Mansion, nothing much to say here. I'm going to grab that elixir. I'm going to make my way through to get the secret key. I'm also going to grab Blizzard, so that's going to be a really useful move on Clefable a little bit later. Don't need it just yet, though. Let's go do another quick heal here, just to be extra safe. Use the max elixir. You can grab the Carbos if you have specific speed IVs to outspeed certain Pokemon later on, which you otherwise would need to X-speed. I did not have one of the IVs that requires a Carbos, so I didn't get it in this particular run. Okay, Blaine Fight. So, for this fight, you have to set up 2 or at least 1 special attack. Sometimes 2 if your special attack is not good. I have enough special attack that I'm going to be risking a pretty favorable range on Arcanine. If you have extremely low speed, you have to X-speed here as well, but I don't have that, so don't have to worry. So you Shockwave the first 2 Mons because they go down to the Shockwave, and you can save some Water Pulses. And the Arcanine here will be a 14 and 16 range with this special attack. Alright, so after saying no to Bill here, off to Giovanni's gym, and just like in a lot of categories, and most of the alt mains that are in this hack, and also runs in the original Fire Red Leaf Green, Giovanni's gym is pretty free. The only thing you do have to worry about is being potentially slower than the Doug trio on Giovanni. But you need to have minus attack and or minus speed and have pretty low IV. So I don't have to worry about that here. So this is just a free gym for Clefable. Okay, so there are now 6 fights left in the run. So this next fight's kind of interesting. If you have low attack, or no, if you have high special attack, you go for the what's called the X special strat, and then if you have fairly low special attack, you go for the X attack strat. So for this run, I believe I'm going for the X attack strat, because my attack is pretty low. So just set up a guard spec, X speed because I'm slower than the Alakazam, and then go for X attack as well, and then go through here. What's unfortunate is the guard spec does run out, so we'll be seeing the Intimidate from the Growlithe. It's not a huge deal, it just means the Venusaur is going to be a 2-hit with return, but not a big deal. Venusaur is pretty harmless, doesn't do a lot of damage. Okay. So the Elite Four is kind of interesting. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to deposit all my HM friends and heal Clefable. And buy some full restores. Get statused quite a bit. Okay, so the way Lorelei works here is you do a physical setup for X attacks. You do use an X speed if you have really low speed. In this particular case, I do not have that. If you have really good attack, you only need to set up 2 X attacks. If you have really bad attack, you have to set up 4. So in my case, I have to set up 3. And And that's it for the X attacks, actually. So do not use any more X attacks this entire run. In this particular case, I made a mistake, actually. I should have gone for Shockwave on the Cloyster. So Shockwave was guaranteed, whereas Return was a 5 and 16 range. So I definitely did not read ahead and look at the damage ranges, so I did lose a bit of time there. But everything else just drops to Return. The Lapras is actually dies just at a +3 with this attack. Okay, so next up is Bruno. I'm just going to heal the full before this fight. It is probably okay to not heal, but it does risk critical at some point, so... just playing it safe. So for this fight, you, again, if you have low speed, you X speed, and if you have low special attack, you set up 2 X specials. In this particular case, I will be setting up just 1. First, of course, I'm setting up a guard spec because the Onyx has Rock Tomb. Do not want to get outsped by fighting types when you're a normal type Pokemon. And this fight is just spam Psychic once you're done setup. Pretty straightforward fight. Alright. So the next fight is against Agatha, and this is part of the reason why I keep Shockwave as long as I do. This fight's actually really interesting. If you have really high special attack, well, decently high special attack and pretty decently high speed, so you need to be able to outspeed. If you can outspeed this Gengar and one-hit it without setup, you would just kill this thing's turn 1 with Psychic, because this thing likes to spam double team. If you don't meet both of those criteria, in this case I did not, I will have to do my setup on the Gengar, and then 2-hit it with Shockwave. If you don't set up on the Gengar, you end up setting up on the Golbat. And the Golbat, at least the one time I did test this strat, it just went for Air Cutter, which is actually not that bad. The Gengar has Toxic, which is not a fun thing to deal with. I think it has Confuse Ray as well. And I believe in almost all cases you're outsped by the second Gengar, so you have to use an X speed at some point in this fight. So, pretty straightforward fight though. Not very much at risk to take a lot of damage. Alright, so 2 fights to go. So Lance is probably it's actually not even that bad of a setup, but definitely chance to take some heavy damage if you're not careful. I'm going to heal the full. I'm actually going to teach Blizzard now. I don't really need Psychic anymore, so I'm going to get rid of Psychic. And so this next fight coming up here, you use different X items depending on your stats. So if you have pretty decent special attack, you can skip the X special. If you have pretty decent speed, in fact, in most cases you would X speed. You would use X speed, and you also use at least one. In this case, I opted to just use 2X accuracies, just to ensure that my Blizzards are 100% accurate. And so, Shockwave the Gyarados. The Gyarados has Hyper Beam. Want to try to stay away from that if we can. And then just spam Blizzard on the remaining 4 Pokemon. Because Blizzard, I used 2X accuracies, Blizzard is 100% accurate, and I don't have to worry about missing it. Now, if I had really high attack, I could use Return on these Dragonairs and save the Blizzard PP, because I do need to hit one more Blizzard later without an X accuracy set up. But my attack is not quite good enough for that, so I have to Blizzard the Dragonairs instead. Now, when I say have one Blizzard left, that's provided I don't use the elixir that I have in my inventory, which I am going to use just to be safe for this next fight. So similar here to the fight against Viridian Rival, there is an X special strat and an X attack strat. So if you have pretty much almost all special attack IVs, other than like 15 or less on a minus nature, you would do the X special strat. So the X special strat is guard spec, X speed, X special twice, and then start killing things. The X attack strat, you have to use some X attacks, the X speed, and then you also have to use a second guard spec after you're done setting up to avoid the intimidates from the Gyarados and the Arcanine. But for X special, you don't have to worry about that. Pretty much just use super effective special attacks on everything here, except for the Alakazam, which you just use Return on, because Alakazam is pretty frail and dies to Return without setup. Alright, one Pokemon left, and that is the Venusaur. And hit my Blizzard, and that's GG. So that's a really nice, almost 10-minute improvement on the previous run of this. So overall, this run was really solid. I hit an optional, I made a few small mistakes, but I got a very fast Clefairy spawn. The Clefairy itself wasn't fantastic, but it was definitely good enough to, based considering that I got it super quick. So very, very happy with this run. Not sure if I'll come back and try to beat this. It's definitely improvable, but like a low 126, even a 125 is definitely doable. But you have to, grinding for the Clefairy just sounds like something I'm not too keen on doing. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. In terms of how this stands against the other alt mains, this is currently the 5th best Mon to beat this game with, using general like allowable Mons other than like hacking and a starter. It's 5th place on the list, only beaten by Nidoking and the 3 starters, Blastoise, Charizard, Venusaur respectively. So Clefable's pretty solid. It's probably going to end up being 5th overall, unless we see another Mon like Primeape or Nidoqueen come in and potentially beat it out, but pretty solid time, pretty solid Mon. This is a lot of fun to route, and yeah, thanks for watching.